Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a foundational historical source, Deuteronomy chapter 7. We're going to examine exactly how this ancient text outlines some pretty intense military strategies, highly conditional promises, and completely uncompromising religious rules. Now, rather than taking sides on the heavy theological themes here, we're going to purely analyze the internal logic of the passage itself. We want to see how it structures total conflict and strict segregation. What was this text actually saying to its original audience? Let's start with the command to conquer and the idea of total conflict. Right out of the gate, the text sets the stage by identifying this massive, multinational conflict brewing in the region. It explicitly names 7 specific nations, groups like the Hittites, Amorites, and Canaanites. And get this, they're actually described as being greater and mightier than the Israelites. But the directive they're given, it's absolute. They are commanded to utterly destroy these larger nations without making any treaties, and honestly, without showing any mercy. To stop any intermarriage or the worship of foreign gods, the text lays out 4 very specific steps. They have to destroy altars, break down images, cut down groves, and burn graven images. It's basically a calculated blueprint for total cultural erasure, all just to ensure their own religious survival. Which brings us to the concept of a holy chosen people and this underdog dynamic. What's genuinely fascinating here is the underlying reason the text gives for why this specific group is handed such extreme orders. It brilliantly sets up this massive underdog dynamic. You see, their status as a special people isn't because of military might or huge numbers. In fact, the text specifically reminds them that they were the fewest of all people. Instead, their status is entirely based on a divine oath and God's love. The text really emphasizes God's faithfulness here, promising to keep his covenant and show mercy for a staggering 1,000 generations. Think about that, 1,000 generations. That is a massive scale of security promised to this tiny underdog nation, as long as they love him and keep his commandments. But there's a catch. Let's look at obedience and divine blessings. Because the crucial point here is the strict if-then dynamic governing this whole arrangement. If they obey the rules, then they unlock these highly specific, incredible incentives. Obedience literally translates into absolute security. We're talking multiplied populations, blessed crops like corn and wine, massive flocks, zero barrenness, and total immunity from the, quote, evil diseases of Egypt. Moving on to overcoming fear. All of this builds into the psychological conditioning they desperately needed to face those larger, terrifying armies we mentioned earlier. I mean, it's paralyzing to face an army bigger than yours, right? So to counter that fear, the text acts as a psychological anchor. It tells them to remember the plagues, the signs, and the wonders that previously freed them from bondage. It's essentially saying, hey, the exact same power that defeated Pharaoh is the one fighting for you right now. Okay, so looking at the strategy of gradual conquest, this is where we see a really surprising tactical restraint, especially considering that earlier command for utter destruction. The text actually tells them to conquer by little and little. Why? So the beasts of the field don't increase upon them. It's a highly practical approach to warfare. They have to pace the destruction so the ecological balance isn't ruined by wild animals completely taking over suddenly emptied cities. It's just an incredibly pragmatic logistical constraint placed right inside a divine command. And the military strategy wraps up with a very strict economic warning. Plundering the silver and gold from enemy idols, that's completely forbidden. Those metals are treated like a contagious abomination. If they try to keep it to get rich, it'll bring a literal curse right into their own homes. So, as we wrap up this explainer and digest this ancient framework of divine reward, gradual conquest, and pretty unyielding eradication, it really leaves us with a heavy question. Does the survival of an ancient identity absolutely require the destruction of the other, or is this conditional covenant a historical warning about the terrifying extremes of holy war? It's definitely a lot to think about, but an absolutely essential question when studying our history. Thanks for learning with me today.